Ready, set. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Phazerville. This is another episode of Unmedicated ADHD. We'll take a good look at the new hardware and how I used it to make my latest single, Actions Will Speak.
Pay less attention to the words you heard them say.
Using the DualTM applet, my ultimate generative CV tool. Based on the linear feedback shift register concept used in the popular analog Turing machine module from Music Thing Modular. Welcome to Phazerville! Pew, 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 pew. So the series is called Stolen Ornaments, and it's primarily about code and ideas and concepts that I've stolen. But I have a few physical items that I've not paid for. I guess I have a way of intimidating people across the internet without even leaving my house. They pack things up and mail them across the world to me without payment. So I stole it. First up, this is honestly my favorite unit. It's a really powerful performance controller, the OCPX from Plum Audio. Even with the new hardware right around the corner, the OCPX is still the ultimate. We've got manual trigger buttons, manual attenuverters on all the inputs, normal to 5 volts, so you don't even need to patch anything to the inputs to be able to tweak it by hand. USB port right on the front, so you can easily hook it into your computer, use it as a MIDI to CV interface, all kinds of fun stuff. I somehow conned Shay from Plum Audio into sending this to me from halfway around the world for free. So I stole it. I'm not giving it back. Next up we have Pleiades from Calsynth, which is a Platts clone, a faithful full-size Platts clone with the big knobs and the spacing and the ergonomics that everyone loves. I don't know why Calsynth had felt intimidated enough. Wait, what's my angle here? I stole this module from Calsynth. Not entirely sure why he felt so threatened. Might have something to do with the Teensy 4.0 based Ornament Crime units that he's now selling. I live in Michigan, by the way, and I never leave my house, so how did I steal all these items? I stole this effects aid from Chris Meyer. Did not pay for that one. Well, I kinda did. I earned it, but I'm still gonna say I stole it. Put my own knobs on it though. It came with these really dumb looking knobs. What else did I steal? This fantastic micro Ornament Crime unit from Michigan Synthworks is the only one that I did not steal. This was one of the first Eurorack modules I actually purchased, and little did I know that it was a giant rabbit hole I was about to fall into. This one is a micro Ornament Crime that my girlfriend bought. I have no clue what she thought she was gonna do with a Eurorack module, so I stole that from her. It was my birthday though, so I deserved it. And finally, I've been ripping off PJRC for almost a year now. I stole this original 14 HP Ornament Crime unit. Doesn't even have a panel, but it came with this Teensy 4.1 on the back. That's when we were initially testing out the 4.1 with the old hardware, which still works. But it's just been sitting in a box because it doesn't have a panel and I can't really use it very well. And finally, I've stolen 2 of these Teensy 4.1 prototypes now, along with expanders. This expander came with the first one, and here's another expander that came with the second one. This is TRS MIDI, extra breakout jacks for the triggers, and USB. I feel kind of bad for Paul though, so I'm gonna send one of those back. I've stolen enough from him. All jokes aside, I'm very grateful to everyone who has sent me free stuff. Thank you all for the support and motivation in my quest to rework the OC into my own dream sequencer and CV multi-tool. This video is not sponsored, and no one is paying me to say anything. I'm just doing my part to pass on the good vibes. I never really expected much in return, so I also need to give a big thank you to everyone who has bought me a coffee through my internet tip jar. I like expensive coffee, so I'm very grateful for your generous tips. Links in the description. Thank you. So let's get into it. The new hardware has been over-engineered by Paul from PJRC, the maker of Teensy, as a reference implementation for Teensy 4.1 based Eurorack shields. It runs the same firmware code with updated drivers, featuring 8 CV inputs and 8 CV outputs instead of just 4, as well as 2 audio channels for customizable DSP effects chains. Extra pins on the back provide expansion for USB host, serial MIDI, and I2C. I have some footage of the back of the Revision 2 module, which is mostly the same. We can see it's the full Teensy 4.1. It comes with an SD slot. I haven't implemented anything for that quite yet, but it should be possible to have plenty of storage. These pins are the USB host connector. You can plug a MIDI controller directly in. It powers it. And that works quite nicely, actually, with my MIDI controller. And then the MIDI in and out. That's standard serial MIDI, and it works using these 4 pins for MIDI in and out. Separate trigger input circuits can also be split from the top row of inputs, allowing a total of 12 CV inputs, 4 triggers, and 8 ADC. Some unpopulated resistor locations on the PCB will allow for shifting the output range from the default asymmetrical to bipolar plus/minus 5 volts. Paul sent me these extra breakout panels to use for the MIDI in and out, either standard 5-pin or TRS jacks, as well as the separate trigger input jacks, and USB in both directions. So I've got my MIDI controller plugged in to the USB host, and then the regular serial MIDI is via this cable to TRS adapter to the beatbox. So I can use my MIDI controller. It's passing all the MIDI through to the beatbox. So that means I can do things like this. Started the clock, so the clock is clocking the controller. So we have clock synced, note repeat on the controller. The Ornament Crime is the master clock. MIDI is being passed through. It's pretty great. The 2 channels of audio in and out at the bottom of the front panel use the Teensy's pre-existing audio DSP library. The code for the DSP effect chain is relatively easy to construct or modify with a web-based editor. As a proof of concept, I've selected a reverb for channel 1 and a filter for channel 2, and provided a simple way for an applet output to modulate the filter cutoff behind the scenes. It can also function as a USB audio interface, although quality is limited to 16-bit 44.1 kHz. I can eventually make the audio DSP integration more friendly for users, but I think customizing it is a good entry point for firmware hacking and experimentation. After all, that's the beauty of open source. So it's almost a couple years ago now when I first started hacking on the Ornament Crime firmware. One of the first things I did was I tried to adjust how the cursor behaved, because I didn't like having to push the button to cycle through all the parameters to get back to the start. Anyway, after I modified the cursor behavior, my first big task was to modify the shift reg applet that was already here. And what I ended up doing is transforming it into this DualTM. I transformed it from the regular shift register, which was trying to be a faithful imitation of the Turing machine module. I transformed it into a set of 2 shift registers that go up to 32 steps, so up to 32 bits, which is twice the size of the actual Turing machine. Anyway, the whole point was I really like the looped random probabilistic bit flipping, what I really wanted was as many looped random sources as possible out of one module. So out of 8 HP, all 4 outputs can be something separate. And you can use Quantermain or MetaQ to kind of achieve the same thing, but I wanted it in hemisphere and I wanted more flexibility. So that's how I arrived at where we are today. 2 separate 32-bit shift registers sharing the same probability, sharing the same clock. Each one can have a separate quantizer. This is the note range. There's a slew setting that enables portamento of pitches or smooth decay on triggers and smoothing on the gates. And then over here on the second page, you can assign both CV inputs to modulate any number of different things. And you can also assign each output to be any number of different things. So this is a pitch derived from the first register or a pitch derived from the second register. And this was really important because with a standard Turing machine, you might be getting the pitch and the triggers from the same register. I wanted to be able to have a trigger sequence and a pitch sequence coming from independent registers, right? I wanted them completely decoupled. And so that was one of the things, I just wanted to be able to have multiple registers to derive my modulation from. Pitch 1 and 2, this is a pitch derived from the average of the 2 registers. And then we have bipolar modulation. Pitches, by default, are only positive CV. Modulation is unquantized bipolar CV. Triggers are derived from the current bit, and then gates are high-low. And then there's a 2-stage gate, which is derived from both registers combined. So very simple concepts, but lots and lots of possibilities out of just one applet. Okay, let me show you how I used this tool to stumble upon a happy accident that became the foundation for an entire track. So yeah, something like that. Just the output from the modular patch that I jammed on for about 7 minutes. I eventually cut it down to this. So it was just like a really infectious, happy accident. And, a lot of happy accidents. And I just kind of picked out the ones that I liked best. And then I just added drums. And that's how it started. And I added vocals, a lot of vocals. Oh wow, there was even more vocals. I layered a ton of vocals and then I rendered that down to a stem and chopped it up and played with it. And then I layered a lot more vocals and then rendered that to a stem. I don't know. Some sections are still the layers and some are flattened.
Pay less attention.
There's some weird stuff in here, but all together, it adds up to something pretty cool. And then there's a bass line. I wrote the bass line by hand. Played it in. Go time. Do 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 do. That really gives it a driving feel right there. But it all started with the modular. It had such a groove. It just turned out so well. It's the happy accidents that happen when you're patching sometimes. I'm gonna set up the basic patch that I used to create the initial stem. Our only voice is the monsoon in resonator mode. So you push both and it's the last mode. And it'll sound a little different depending on your audio quality setting. I'm using the first one, the highest quality one. So we'll just take the output, one of the outputs, and We're using the Teensy Audio DSP at the bottom. I'll use both sides to show you what it sounds like. The left side is loaded with a reverb with just a set amount of wet. I think it's like 30%. I can get this to just start ringing out. There you can kind of hear the reverb echo. But this side is a low-pass filter. It's set up as a low-pass filter, and whatever's coming out of the first applet here, so output C, whatever that is, modulates the cutoff. That's just how I set it up for experimentation. So this is a filter, but it's being modulated by DualTM. The first output is set to a 2-stage gate. So it's going to go from 0 to 2.5 to 5 volts randomly. And there's a little bit of slew, so that little bit of slew rounds off the gates. Okay. Triggers with a little bit of slew become decay envelopes. There's the trigger without any slew, so that's just a pulse. I should have mentioned you can use the new expanded full screen scope view if you want to inspect how these waveforms come out with the slew. There's also a scope screensaver that might be helpful to visualize. We're only listening to this, to the audio DSP so far. So let me patch up more control here. We'll use the left side applet set up as pitch and triggers. Output A for the pitch and output B to re-trigger. Turn down the decay on that resonator and see what this sounds like. Instant song material. You hear that? That's crazy. And you can let it evolve. It should be noted that you could just as easily run the signal through a filter of your choice and then modulate that filter with the output C to get the same effect. My cat wants to be in the video. This filter isn't even plugged in, but this is how you'd do it. Resonator into the filter, modulate the filter with output C from DualTM, and then listen to the output of the filter. I'm too lazy to actually hook it up. So the logical next step, I guess, is to add drums. I was just jamming on just this patch, and then I added drums later on in the DAW, but it would be really satisfying, I think, to add drums right here. So I'm running Quadrants. You won't see it on here, but in the app menu we have Quadrants as well as Hemisphere. Quadrants has 4 applets. So this is northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest, or something like that. If we want good drums, we gotta use something like not quite right. Hold on. Yeah, lots of fun. This concept alone, the shift register DualTM, will give you happy accidents for days. And just pick one 4-bar loop that sounds pretty good, and you've got all the inspiration you need to make a whole song. I hope you found this video inspirational and informative. I know I threw a lot of information at you, so if there's anything you want to know more about, please let me know in the comments. Links for information about the new hardware will be in the description, along with anything else. You can buy my new single at djphazer.com or just listen to it. You can also buy me a coffee to support my development and help me stay afloat. Thank you all for watching and listening. Peace out.